I'm about to take you into a very special conversation. It's a moment from my Do the New You Mindset Masterclass. I know that's a mouthful, but it was an incredible time of discovery and teaching and development. I got together with my friend Brendan Burchard, #1 New York Times bestselling author, high performance coach, amazing, brilliant mind. And we talked about the 6 mindsets from my book, Do the New You, in detail, like the nitty gritty of it. How do I bring these mindsets into my life? And I'm gonna share with you a section of that conversation today right here. And if you'd like access to the entire masterclass, all you gotta do is go to dothenewyou.com, get the book, and you'll unlock the entire library. This is gonna be a resource to help you. I can't wait to share it with you. And in the meantime, go to dothenewyou.com and you'll get them all. Now enjoy this moment. This is one of our favorites. Write in the comments, I'm not stuck. And just put that in the comment, even though you're like, I am stuck. I'm literally stuck. I'm totally stuck. I'm really, really stuck, okay? That is a challenging paradigm for people because if you look in the Bible, Paul and Silas seemed stuck in prison, but they praised God and the chains broke loose. You know, Gideon seemed stuck in a wine press, but God spoke and he became a deliverer. Moses seemed stuck as a murderer, running as a fugitive on the backside of the desert, and then this burning bush, and God had 40 more years of amazing things for him to do. And all of these people felt stuck. So I want you to tell me what were your reflections on this first mindset, I'm not stuck unless I stop. Do you agree with it? How do you see it? How do we summon our way through that? And let's really dig into this first mindset.
I love it. I love every section of this chapter because it reminds you that everyone feels stuck. I think one of the things you did great in the book is that people see themselves in it constantly. You go, I do feel stuck sometimes in my relationships. I just feel stuck in my head. I feel stuck in my career. What am I gonna do? And a lot of people, they feel like that stuck is permanent. Like, hey, I'm working hard, but I'm stuck. So there's not lack of action for them. They're like, I'm going to work, but I feel stuck. I'm working hard, but I'm not earning more. I feel stuck. And what ends up happening is the more you feel stuck, the more you spin in doubt.
Wow.
And so
when you're stuck, you spin. Write that down.
Yeah.
When you're stuck, you spin.
Yeah. And people always mistake the signal for doubt as a signal to stop.
Tell me
but
more.
Doubt is not saying stop. Doubt is a signal to learn. And when you change that frame in your mind, everything changes in your life. I'm so doubtful. Doubt doesn't say, well, stop and don't learn anymore. Doubt is literally, I don't know. So the only way to actually figure it out is get in motion, try, test. Like doubt is the entrance to the scientific process. Doubt is the entrance to faith.
Wow.
And so when you realize that, like, oh, I'm having all these doubts about this thing, the next thought should be, well, I'm going to have to do something to discover the answer. I'm going to have to do something to discover the truth. I'm going to have to do something to test this hypothesis.
Will it break your flow if I ask you something about that?
No, I love it. Yeah, go ahead.
Every religious person in the world is pulling up James 1 right now going, but the Bible says, let he who hath faith ask and not doubt, for he who asketh in faith shall not receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all he does. And I always thought that verse meant not, don't have doubts or don't feel doubts. I thought it just meant go through the door of your doubt to get to the other side and find your faith.
Right. Well, I think a lot of themes of the Bible are do not be afraid, or as you taught me, be strong and courageous. That presupposes some doubt.
Right.
Most of the Bible presupposes we have doubts.
Yeah, if he says be strong, I must feel weak because I wouldn't tell you to sit down. You already are.
Yeah, he didn't start the story. Gideon doesn't start the story as,
a mighty
champion and a warrior.
Yeah.
He starts in the wine press.
A wimp in a wine press.
David doesn't start the story with the sling. I mean, so you have to go, each of these stories starts in a place often of doubt.
Yeah.
or discouragement, despair, division between people. We have to cycle through that. But the thing is, I always said, well, that's why there's another verse. That's why there's another chapter. It's why there's something more. It's like the story might begin in doubt, but the story doesn't stop there. And we have to remember that in our own lives. And so what I loved about this first chapter where he's saying, I'm not stuck unless I stop, is you unlock a lot of reasons that people should not stop and realize that they can change. I love how you talk about, you can defy your default.
Yeah.
That maybe your default was to stop or to do these bad negative behaviors, but you can work your way through them. You can change, you can shift. And I think that's a hopeful message for a lot of people because they really do believe that they're stuck, and stuck is a place of permanence. When what your book is teaching them, stuck was a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And you can change your mind, so you can change your life.
Yeah, when you say stuck, you're probably thinking of all the people that you've coached who basically thought they had gone as far as they could go. Mm-hmm. Whether that's in their business or whether they had wrecked their personal life building their business. And part of what you do is to walk into somebody who goes, and I've heard you say this phrase before, I love it. You go, I've tried everything.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you go, oh yeah? Everything? Yeah, I've tried everything. And then walk through it because you have an exercise you make people do that I love.
Yeah, it's like, well, I tried everything. I'm like, awesome. I'm so excited. And I get really encouraged for them. And I say, well, if you tried everything, show me the list. And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, show me the list. You tried everything. I mean, if you tried everything, then you must have kept a list really detailed of all the things you tried because, of course, you'd have to know what's mutually exclusive. You'd have to know what you tried and didn't work, and you'd have to adjust and do it over again, so show me the list. And most often people will go, well, I tried once or twice, and I tried the same. Well, I asked my boss for a raise on Monday, I asked him on Friday. Asked him the same way, every time, all the time. But I've been asking, so you've been asking, okay, but you haven't been adding new value. So it's like you tried one strategy and you hit it 50 times and you didn't adjust it from another way. You haven't tried everything. You tried what you knew. Mm-hmm. You need to get perspective or approach it in a different way. And I think often too, people when they think of stuck, they think of just negative things. I'm stuck in a bad marriage. A lot of people are stuck in a very happy marriage. And what I mean by that is they don't need to leave the marriage. They have to learn to be different. Try a new angle to find the happiness, the fulfillment, or the intimacy in the marriage. So what I mean by that is sometimes people, they're just at a plateau. They're actually successful. They're actually doing well. Things are good. And a lot of high performers are going, oh, you're doing well. You're actually high performing, but there's this next level for you. And I think that I actually got that out of the book as much as I got out of, oh, I'm in despair, I'm troubled, things are bad. What I also took from the book was things are going well, but there's a new level for me when I'm in a greater connection to my faith. Speaking about plateaus, you have this great statement in the book, don't argue for your limitations. Yeah. What do you mean by that? Because I think a lot of people, they are stuck, but they're stuck in their own limitation.
I heard a motivational speaker say it one time. He said, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them.
Oof.
And that convicted me because I realized how many times I do it. And I don't know if I'm arguing with God like Moses did. God, I can't speak, send somebody else. I don't feel like I'm arguing with God. I feel like I'm just arguing against myself. And I realize what I'm actually agreeing with in that moment is the enemy's view of me.
Yes.
And I don't mean limitation, hey, you've never picked up a basketball, but you can play in the NBA and you're 54 years old. Uh-huh. That's not the kind of limitation I have in mind. I mean, the kind of limitation that is rooted in a lie where God is calling you to be this kind of person and to make this kind of impact, or you sense that he's giving you a glimpse and giving you a step to take. And then you start building the case against yourself and gathering evidence for why there's a deficiency in you. And so the quote just blew my mind. If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. You live small. You stay in that space. You actually begin to fulfill that prophecy not the prophecy of God over your life, but your own prophecy. You start to fulfill the enemy's prophecy over your life, that you'll never be this and your dad wasn't that. So what I did, I took that quote, and in the book, I take it a little further. I say, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. But if you agree with God about your potential, you get to grow into it.
Oh, that's good.
Grow into it.
That's good.
You know, that's the whole sermon. Put it in the chat. Grow into it. Because growing into it means, no, I'm not it right now. Like any more than I was 5'9" when I was 5. Mm-hmm. But I get to grow into it. And I think that first step of agreeing with God about your potential is to go, God, you know what's in me. I don't. And that's why I'm very wary of just the know thyself philosophy, right? Like, know thyself is great, but how about part 2? Grow thyself.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the outgrow of reflection and awareness and self-acceptance is that I'm going to grow into who God knows me to be. That's the message of the book. I was writing this book to myself in places going, do the new you, the you that you don't know yet, but that God already does, the one that he chose.
Yeah, and have faith in yourself as equally as maybe he has faith in you, which is a hard thing to grow into.
Well, think about this.
You're growing into the faith of yourself, which is very hard for
of yourself, because people will say, don't believe in yourself, believe in God. Here's the problem I have with that. Who made you? If God made me and I don't believe in me, what he called me to be, then it's him I doubt.
Right.
And that really helps me to get past this sticking point where I feel like, well, I just don't want to hype myself up and say that, you know, I can do great things. Well, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yes.
So I think the two go hand in hand. That's why I was passionate to get this masterclass going, to get people out of and to get you out of this mindset that says, well, God is great, but I'm no good. Okay, yeah, we're all sinners. We all need Jesus. We all need forgiveness, but we've been redeemed by him. So what does that speak of us, that he paid that price for us? And that's the limitation that I want you to grow beyond, this view of you that only sees you as flesh and bones and mistakes and disappointments, and to grow into the image of God that you were originally created to be.
So good. I thought of, when I was reading it, the angle you took on don't argue for your limitations, which was also, you were saying, be careful about justifying all your vulnerabilities and your challenges and what's wrong with you, because it's easy to go, well, you know, I'm not a good communicator because, and as soon as you say because, you enter the world of either blame or self-comfort to say, I'm not a good communicator because my parents were mean to me. And so I always tell people, listen on limitations, always listen for the word because.
Wow.
I'm like this because, and you'll often add a negative thing. My parents were like this, they didn't believe in me, she mistreated me, they cheated, they stole. Or we're doing it for our own comfort because we don't believe we have empathy from the world. So sometimes when we share our limitations and our vulnerabilities with people, what we're doing is we're reaching out. We're saying, hey, let me just be vulnerable with you real quick. What it's doing is, could you please see me? Can you recognize me? Because I'm not feeling like I like myself, or I'm not feeling good, seen, heard, or I don't feel like the world is fair. So let me tell you this thing that's unfair for me. Could you see it and acknowledge it and say to me, oh yeah, that is unfair, or oh, I understand now why you are like that. And the whole conversation suddenly does something funny. It justifies and sets concrete around the limitation.
Wow.
Suddenly, we have verbalized the reason, because we've verbalized the reason for the limitation, and now we coalesce around it, and we actually just made it stronger. And so empathy can be like that, which we don't talk about in the modern world. Sometimes overly placating to people's, vulnerabilities or limitations and staying on it and stewing on it all day doesn't actually move them through. It's often the difference in my career of, as we'll share, the difference sometimes between a therapist and a coach. Both absolutely necessary, and I'm a huge mental health guy. But there is a difference. Sometimes we'll spend more time over here in a therapeutic context, and a coach is going to try to move you through that limitation a little bit more aggressively. Not that either is right. Both can be really wrong. But I think it's just a casual way to say to people, Be careful of just always talking about the limitation and arguing for it and seeking to get empathy and understanding and comfort, because all of a sudden you miss the ability to move through it. And I thought that the movement through the book that you took people on was so powerful because you didn't let them sit there.
Well, thank you for saying that, because when I wrote the mindset, I'm not stuck unless I stop, I thought this could come across really callous to somebody who just found out, like, I'm never going to be able to have children, or I'm never going to be able to fulfill this dream, or I'm never going to have my health back like I did before, or this person has gone out of my life. Like, I lost my dad, and in this area of my life, I do feel like there is a limitation. Well, there is a loss, but I'm trying to get you opened up, and anytime I talk about this, I can't help but think about
the single greatest source of stress in your life. We'll broaden it a little bit, not in this very, very moment, but in this season of your life. All right, you got it? Now, open your eyes. You're gonna be shocked, but I know what you were thinking. I know this much. I know that the thing that you thought of fell into one of the following 4 categories. Okay, it was either related to a place, a pace, a problem, or a person. Or maybe peoples, just in general, all of them, every last one of them, just human beings, Homo sapiens. So it's either a place that you're going after this, or even for some people, church can be stressful. It can be stressful I'm sure it's stressful to come to Elevation. I'm sure it's, if you've never been here, especially because it's confusing, because they got like violins and cellos on the stage, but then they start shooting laser beams, and it's mixed messaging. Like, what kind of church is this? Is this a white church, black church? It's a traditional church, yes. Yes to all of the above. It's the kind of church where you can't figure out what kind of church. It's a good news to all people kind of church. But some of the stressful places that we will go this Christmas season, it can be a place. If you have to fly, certainly understand your dread for that experience. Just walk through the airport telling yourself over and over again, I'm not a human, I have no rights, and you'll be okay. The pace of life, I hear people mention this a lot. How you doing? Busy. I'm busy. Busy. I'm busier than a one-armed wallpaper hanger. They said that to me the other day. I think that's weird. Busier than a 3-legged cat trying to cover up his poop on ice, somebody said to me. Yeah. Run around like a chicken with my head cut off. So violent. All I said is, how are you doing? You're like decapitating chickens. So it's like the pace of life. Understand that if you've been running people everywhere, you've been like an unpaid Uber driver for a 13-year-old, I understand. I feel you. Sometimes it comes down to a problem in your life that is persistent, and sometimes it comes down to one that you're just pushing through right now. A lot of people listening to me preach right now are having a hard time focusing with their minds because of the pain in their body. Or what can be even worse, somebody that you love that you can't do anything to comfort them. And that can be difficult. And really, the 4th category that I mentioned, people, that's really the whole thing. Which is why when I asked you to imagine in your mind the source of your stress, the greatest source of your stress, I was very clear. I said, imagine it, because some of you would have started pointing if I would have let you, which is a bad idea. Like, some of you are sitting next to what you perceive to be the source. See, you should look really confused right now, is my advice. And I think it's important, before we begin a discussion on the path of peace, to try to talk about the source of stress, because whatever you identify as the source of your stress determines where you will seek your peace. Amen. I'll say that again. whatever you say, this is the source of my stress, that regulates and determines where you seek your peace. And so the Christmas story, of course, comes along and challenges us in all of those ways that we experience stress and pressure. Christ is born to challenge us as it relates to our expectation of peace. The Jewish people had a very particular expectation of the kind of peace that the Messiah would bring. Zechariah states it very clearly and paints a picture of the kind of peace that the Jewish people were looking for God to bring through the prophesied Messiah. It features such expectations as mentioned in verse 74. He says that this Messiah will rescue us from the hand of our enemies. Notice the word from. The expectation of peace for the Jewish people is that God would deliver them from their circumstances, from their oppression, from their being marginalized, from their poverty, from their despair, and from their darkness. It was surprising then for me to see the shift that Zechariah made in verse 79, where he said that the rising sun will shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death. And so it represents a shift in perspective that God does not always rescue me from. Sometimes he visits me in my trouble. And for so many years, I have thought that the thief of my peace was other people or certain places or the schedule of my life, which is kind of funny because I'm the one who said yes to all that stuff that I'm stressed about. And so now I'm asking God to take away the things that I committed to. And I've tried so long, to arrange my life in such a way that I would no longer experience those stressful events and stressful people. And if God would just change them, and if everybody would just act the way they should act for a little while this Christmas. But the Lord has been speaking to me in these last few days about the path of peace. And what I realized the more I reflected on this promise of peace that God gives us, Isaiah 9:6, his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. But notice the prophet didn't call him the Prince of Convenience, or the Prince of Ease, or the Prince of Comfort, or the Prince of my preferences. Because a lot of times when God promises me peace, what I hear in translation is that God is promising me convenience, or God is promising me ease, or God is promising me my preference being met. But the Lord has been speaking to me, and maybe you don't need to hear this, but just in case you do, it is impossible to experience peace when you are expecting perfection. See, my problem, I'm coming to realize this, it's not other people, it's not the place, it's not the pace, and it's not the problem. The problem is not the problem. I can tell you the problem is not the problem because Jesus was born in a manger. The angel appeared to shepherds. So the shepherds were the people that you would least expect the herald to make the announcement of the birth of the Son of God. And yet he showed up to the least likely people in an unlikely place. So it's not the people. It's not the place. It's not the pace. The shepherds were always on the move from place to place to place to place. It's not the place. It's not the pace. It's not the people. It's not the problem. Here's my problem. My problem is that I can't receive peace because I'm expecting perfection. And the angel said, are y'all going to help me preach, or it's just me today? I'll make it quick. Here's the whole message. If you need to go, if you got things to do, I'll give it to you right now, and you can go on and get to Target, and hopefully everything will turn out all right. The enemy of your peace is not other people. It is not other places. It is not how fast life is or the way the world is. The enemy of your peace is your insistence on perfection. And when heaven came down and appeared to humanity, it was not in the form of perfection. In fact, God did not come down looking like a deliverer. He came down looking like a dependent. He came down as a baby. And so when the Prince of Peace came, he didn't come dressed in power. He came in Pampers. Why? Because God wanted you to know that he's going to bring you peace, but not like you expected him to bring it. It's not going to look like you pictured it. It's not always going to fit your preferences. It's not always going to live up to your exact specifications of the performance of people. So if I'm going to live at peace, I've got to surrender my expectation of perfection. I feel like I can leave. Every Christmas party is going to be so much better that you attend because of what I just told you. Every place you set your foot over the next 3 days is going to be so much more peaceful because you just realized that peace isn't found in a place. Peace is not found in a set of circumstances that is problem-free. It is not that he delivers me from it. It's that he meets me.
Hey, thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. I hope you were blessed today. If you were, share this with somebody. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, what we can pray for you about. Hope to see you back here again really soon.